the books that have literally saved my life. I started the habit of reading about 5 years ago. I remember when I became a chartered accountant, I had vowed that I was never ever opening another book ever again. I was done with reading. I felt I had done my debt to society, until I almost reached like a crossroads in my life, whereby there was no textbook, no learning outcome, no program that could give me further insights on how to live this life well. The first book I then started reading was this book called 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person by Covey. I remember this book from way back. It was written way back in 1994, I think. And I remember I just got a copy. I just came to my mind and said, okay, if I'm going to start reading, this is going to be a book I'm going to start reading. Then I was initially overwhelmed by the number of pages that needs to be read. It's about 300 pages worth of books. So what I ended up doing was, okay, while I was still getting into the habit of reading, I decided to download the audiobook. So what I would do is I would play the audio as I take the kids to school and as I drive to work, because work is quite far. So I found listening to the author reading the book helped me. But I also now needed to actually read the book for myself. What I love about this book is that it's not a book about tricks and gadgets that you can use to be effective with people. It really is about a book about starting with yourself. So the first 3 habits are about realizing that you have the power to create the life that you want to live. And the second habit is about how do you now plan your life so that you can live it the way you want to live it. And the third habit is about how do you now live the life that you want to live. Then the last 3 habits are then the ones that then talk about how do you now interact with other people, because when you're a whole person, you're able to now effectively interact with other people. You're no longer searching. When it comes with your interaction with people, you're just genuinely trying to understand how you can help other people in your day-to-day life. So this was a very good book. Reading this book, Covey mentioned a lot this next book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankyl. Man, guys, this book literally changed my life. Like it really changed my life. This book is about a Holocaust survivor called Viktor. He survived the Holocaust, and he talks about his experience in the concentration camps. And what this book did to me was it almost gave me like a release from life circumstances, life situations that I don't have control over, and realizing that, you know what, I still have the power that Covey was talking about. I still have the power to create the life that I want to live. I may not, my external circumstances may not reflect that right now, but I still have that power. So I really recommend this book. It's about 153 pages, but it's very, very short. It's about 99 rands. And I've read this book about 4 times. And every time I go through like a speed hump in life, I'm just reminded, I have to remind myself about this book. So I'd recommend this book. If you're looking for meaning, if you're searching for purpose, if you're searching about how to find still meaning when you're going through a tough time, this book is for you. And then also there's some books that I've read, like audio. So there are lots of audio books that I've read. A guy that I really, really revere is John Maxwell. He's a leadership guru. So I don't have his books with me right now, but most of the books I've read that he's written are audio. And what I love about his book is that he references books that he read. So one of the books that he referenced was As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. So he said his father gave him this book when he was young, and he read it, I think he reads it like every year. And I was like, no, you know what, if John Maxwell is somebody that I really revere, and if I really want to not become who he is, but like, you know, get insight as to how he has become who he is. John Maxwell is just this amazing communicator. He talks such amazing truths, but in such simplicity, and that's what I'm aiming to be with in life. So, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's a very short book. What this book, the one I got is, so James Allen has written over 20 books, I think. But the most famous one is A Man's Thinketh. So what this guy did, James Feder, he took all the 20 books and took chapters from them and made a book. So I would recommend you to get this Man's Search for Meaning, the volume 2, and the actual Man's as a Man Thinketh is at the back. But all the other, he picks a few chapters from the other books, and it's amazing. I'm going to speak about a few of the books from the other. I then got the actual full books from James Allen because it's such wisdom. This guy wrote in the 1900s, and basically his basic premise is, again, through the whole thing about you have the power to create the life that you want, and that power starts in your mind. So whatever you allow to sit in your mind, it will fester. So whether it is good or it is bad. So you have to be really, really, you have to be really deliberate about the thoughts that you think, because the thoughts that you think will come out as a result later. So this book has been amazing for me. It's helped me to create content for the program I created, for personal development program for my students, and it's helped me as well as I try and figure out this thing called life. After that, I then ordered these 2 books by James Allen. They're 2 books, volume 1 and volume 2. So basically what they are the combination of all the books that James Allen has written. My top favorite books are As a Man Thinketh, 8 Pillars of Prosperity, and which is the next one? From Power to Poverty, and From Passion to Peace. So again, these books, I always start off with these books as audios, because the English is a bit old school, but wow, the wisdom that is spoken in this one. I've just completed updating my ethics training slides for training chartered accountants, and I used the 8 Pillars of Prosperity, and wow, it explains succinctly how one can be ethical and still win in life. And it talks about the principles, the pillars on how to win in this thing called life, and to hold strong to that process of building your character as you do what is right, even when it's not easy. So this has been quite mind-blowing for me. Sometimes my mind is just about to explode and I have to give it a break, but it's been such an interesting journey. I've really, really loved reading James Allen's books. And then my next one is this one. Wow. The Choice by Edith Edgar. So I got this book recommended to me after I did a Psycha Women's Conference session. So isn't it amazing when you attend a function and everyone is expecting to learn from you and you learn more from them? So one of the participants, I was just recommending book reading, because sometimes that's the only solution I have, to read, guys, read. Sometimes you just need to fill your mind with higher things and greater things to overcome what you're currently going through. So I had recommended A Man's Search for Meaning. And then one of the ladies there then recommended this book called The Choice by Edith Edgar. Wow, guys. This book, I could not put it down. It's about 400 pages. And I literally cried throughout this whole book. This book is again about a Holocaust survivor by the name Edith Edgar. And she talks about her experiences in the Nazi Holocaust camps. And what this book did to me, it healed me in areas that I had just put to the side, and I just thought, that's just how life is. So I've been living in a foreign country for almost 20 years now, and it hasn't been an easy journey for me, where you're home, but you're not home, and there are certain laws that exclude you because of the side of the border that you were born from participating. So for a while, I don't know, I think I was holding on to a lot of resentment to being a foreign national. And what she did was explain her experience of suddenly overnight not being able to compete in the Olympics because of her nationality. And she spoke about how she then planned her revenge of perfection. Guys, I started crying and I was just like, oh my word. Most of the things that have been motivating me for the past few years is my revenge for perfection. To say, you know what, you may discount me because of my nationality, but you're gonna regret it because I'm damn good and I'm gonna be damn good at what I do. And I found myself constantly doing things to prove something, to prove that I'm worth something. And this book just freed me because there's a line in the book where she says, if you're still trying to prove something, they still have power over you. And I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but I then started working on it and constantly asking myself, okay, Wazi, why are you doing this particular thing? Are you doing it because it fulfills a greater purpose, or are you doing it to continually prove yourself? So that is questions I continually ask myself. I'm still on the journey of healing, but this book, I would really, really recommend this. And the amazing thing, again, she also talks about life after being in prison. And she talks about reacclimatizing to freedom. And it's sometimes when you've been in this mental prison, sometimes some of these mental prisons, and now when you finally get freedom, you don't know what to do with your liberation. She talks about her process of how she got reunited with her sister. She was with one of her sisters in the camp, and they looked after each other like mentally and held each other together. And they got reunited with the older sister. So this book, guys, like I would really recommend it if you're looking for a book about somebody's evaluated experience with suffering and dealing with things that are out of your control. I would really recommend this book. She later wrote another book called The Gift, 12 Lessons to Save Your Life. So this book basically is almost like a summary of the choice. So if you're going to get this book, I would recommend you read this book first. It's basically a summary of the choice, but she then summarizes the lessons that she's learned. It's a nice summary. I'll read you at the front. It says, in the end, it's not what happens to us that matters most. It is what we choose to do with it. We all face suffering, sadness, loss, despair, fear, anxiety, failure. But we also have a choice to give in and give up in the face of trauma or difficulties, or to live every moment as a gift. She then subsequently became a therapist, and she also talks about some of her experiences of healing as she was helping other people find their healing. And I just love the rawness of her book. She doesn't sit in her pain, but she acknowledges her pain, but she also acknowledges that she still has the power to push through painful experiences. And then at work, funny enough, there was a email that went through. There's a book club at work. I didn't know, but there was one of the emails circulars I happened to read, and there was a book club on this book called Character Building by Booker T. Washington. So this was written in the 1800s. Booker T. Washington, he was an American educator, author, orator, and advisor to the presidents of the United States. And between 1890 and 1950, Washington was a dominant leader in the African-American community. So he was the last generation of Black American leaders born into slavery and became the leading voice of former slaves and their descendants. They were newly oppressed in the South by disenfranchised and the Jim Crow discriminatory laws enacted in the post-Reconstruction Southern states in the late 19th and 20th century. Guys, man, like I only got the hard copy of this book later because they're limited stock. But again, I listened to the audio first, and I was like, so this book, Character Building, I was just like, wow, these are principles written in like 1902, and they still apply to everyday life. And what's amazing about this book, again, it re-emphasizes about the way that we have power to live the life that we want with the things that we have. So he emphasizes that, especially when you've come from a period of slavery where you have been in bondage, when you're now in freedom, you now need to outlive the freedom. So he talks about simple things like showing up, brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, bathing, looking like you have bathed, because now you have the freedom. Nobody's telling you what to do. So when you've lived a life that has been where your power has been abdicated to somebody else, where somebody else is telling you how to live your life, you don't know how to live the life for yourself. So I would recommend this book. So this book is a compilation of all the speeches that he used to say to his students. He started a university, guys, like a university from scratch, from being a slave. He educated himself, and then he started a university predominantly focused on educating and uplifting the Black community, teaching them life skills, teaching them that you can use your hands. Use your hands. I know our hands were abused before, but we have this ability to use our hands, this industrialness that we're born with, and we need to use it. And I love this book because also I use this book again in building the program, the personal development program for my students. Then I always like, when I see one good book by one author, I like to see the other books that they've written. He wrote also this book, Up From Slavery. And this book is now his biography of how he came up from slavery, from a last generation slave to educating himself and to starting a university. Guys, like, and I want you to imagine starting a university like from scratch, like not just going to buy a building and renovating it. No, like building the bricks, teaching the students to build the bricks while they're concurrently learning theories and everything, but building the bricks. So what was amazing about this was his emphasis on Black people using their hands to create employment for themselves, and not to shun these things, and not to be so focused on wanting to look intelligent. Like, so he said one of the parents would come and complain and say, why are you making my son build bricks and build houses, the university, when he should be learning French? You know, he should be going parlez-vous le français, you know, and looking like he's intelligent. And he said this was the main fight he had, to try and convince people to say, when you are looking to uplift yourself, look in the community that you're in, identify any gaps that the community they're in. So the place where they built the school was in a place that did not have bricks. So he identified that, look, we need to learn how to make bricks so that we can give back to the community, and then we can raise funds to further build the school. And this just gave me so much encouragement, because I've always secretly wanted to start my own school that is not conventional, but that is like big thinking. Let's use our hands, guys. Let's use our intellect and our hands together, and let's make job opportunities for ourselves and for others. The other part I really loved about this, when he spoke about funding, how he found funding for his idea. And he said something quite simple. He said, talk about your idea and let it go. Like, keep talking about what you want to do, but let it go. And he spoke about this amazing experience that he had. So somebody who he kept on talking about the idea, knew about the idea about this university, had written in his will that he was going to leave an inheritance to Booker T to further build the university. But then he realized, look, I'm not dying fast enough. I might as well give you the money first. And he said something quite interesting before he died. So this guy just gave him all this money before he actually died. And the guy said to him quite something interesting, is that, and what Booker T said, he said, wealthy people are wealthy because they know how to use their money well. If you show them that you will know how to use their money, they will give you the money. So you focus on doing your stuff and doing it well. Then people will give you their money. So that has been quite a release for me. I've had my own experience of people giving me money to do what I'm doing, and I've been doing it using my own money or with little to no funds, and then people just saying, hey, Wazi, here's 10 rands. Then they check out. How does she use that 10 rands? Okay, here's 100. Okay, here's 1,000. Okay, let's see what she does with 10,000. So it's about that, learning how to fully utilize your resources, honoring the money that you've been used, and giving more value than the money that you've been given. So that's amazing book, up from slavery. Then this book, The Psychology of Money. This book, again, like I said, this book was recommended when somebody had reached out to me. It was actually an ex-student of mine. He had reached out to me. I was looking for ideas for funding. And I'm like, my guy, like, yeah, I'm the last person to ask. And then he recommended this book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Sure, guys, this book is, again, another book that I'm using to do the finance section of the personal development program for my students. The amazing thing about this book, it talks about, like what it says, the psychology of money. Money is all about behavior. You know, some of the things that we do, some of the things that we buy, some of the things that the decisions that we make are not based on money, are based on the money, the behavior that we want to make. And there's so many nuggets that I've literally highlighted almost every single page. And I'd really, really recommend this book if you're struggling with the area of money, and how to make money work for you and not you work for money, and to really interrogate why we make certain decisions. I'd really recommend this book. It talks about getting wealthy and staying wealthy. Wealth is not what you see. Save money. All those things, but the main thing is that the basic premise of this book is that doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. A behavior is hard to teach, even to really smart people. A genius who loses control over their emotions can be a financial disaster, and the opposite is true. So this book equips you to identify the behaviors behind your spending habits and to ensure that you, equip yourself. The next book, Atomic Habits. This book was recommended by a colleague of mine, by James Clear. She knows that I love all things psychology and just finding better ways on how to understand the human mind and how to behave. Wow, again, I would really recommend this book. What I love about this book, number one, it looks like it's thick, but it's actually not that thick. It's about 264 pages. It has the spacing is quite good. It talks about how you can make tiny changes to your life and to create sustainable results, to build better habits. It says people think when you want to change your life, you need to think big. But while renowned habits expert James Clear has discovered another way, he knows that real change comes from the compound effect of hundreds of small decisions. Doing 2 push-ups a day, waking up 5 minutes earlier, or reading just 1 page. He calls them atomic habits. If you're looking at finding out how to build habits that are sustainable, I would really, really recommend this book. It's got really, really good insights on how to do that. And then this book, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. So Sheryl Sandberg is the COO of Facebook. This book, wow, guys, this book came from a book club that I'm a part of at CA's, that I'm a part of, and it was one of the books that was recommended. And again, guys, I read this book from start to finish in one sitting. This is another book that I cried because this book freed me from my loneliness. Success is lonely, guys. When you're successful, and success just means when you just achieve what you set out to do. It's a very lonely place to be. And I thought I was alone and I thought I was doing something wrong. And many a times I would want to do something extra, then I think, no, but I don't want to be alone anymore. You know, I still also want to be around people. What this book did was it opened my eyes to the realities of being a successful woman. It's not antagonistic, it's not feministic, it's not saying, yo, women, we must, you know, it's really just empowering women to say, it's gonna be a tough road. It's tough for you being successful, being a woman. I particularly like her chapter where she talks about success and likability. She says basically there's an inverse proportion, there's an inverse relationship between success and likability for women and for men. So basically, the more successful a man gets, the more liked he gets. And the more successful a woman gets, the more unliked she gets. And for me, it just now made sense for me. And I healed. I really healed because healing sometimes comes from looking at your wound and realizing that I'm not the only one that has this wound. And she gives, so she identifies these things and then she gives pointers to say how to own your success and how to ensure that you can successfully continue being liked. She gives you tips. Not that being liked should be your goal, but let's be honest, we're human beings. Like nobody wants to be alone. You know, you want to be successful, but you also just don't want to isolate yourself. She also talks about your career not being a ladder, a jungle gym. And that's what, for me, again, it released me because I feel like my life is like a jungle gym. I haven't reached the top of any ladder, but I do quite a lot of things. Sometimes I'm on the slide, sometimes I'm on the swing, sometimes I'm on the seesaw, sometimes I'm on the merry-go-round, and that also freed me. She also speaks about mentorship. There's this thing that thing that people believe that people must find good mentors, but actually mentors find their mentees. And again, it's a emphasis on doing your work and doing it well. Somebody's watching. Somebody's going to reach out and pluck you because great people want other great people to be with them. And they're going to lift you from that place and put you in those positions that you need to do. And then she talks about the myth about doing it all. I also used to believe that being successful meant I needed to change every diaper, and at the same time I needed to ensure that I cooked every meal, that I swept every floor, that I did every homework for the kids, and that basically I thought that was what success was. But she talks about allowing your partner to come and help you. And that's something that I have learned as well, to allow my partner to help me in this journey called life. And sometimes it just literally comes from just literally letting go. Because sometimes women such as myself, when you seem to have it all together, nobody knows how to help you. And sometimes you need to show that you actually do need help. So I would recommend this book, Linen, by Sheryl Sandberg. The next book I would also recommend is this book, The Lineage of Grace by Francine Rivers. This book, wow, again, it's about 600 pages. It's a book filled with 5 stories. So basically, Francine Rivers writes based on biblical stories, and she tries to make them relatable. So she talks about 5 women: Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. And wow, this book for me was also amazing, just to get further insights into the Bible and these amazing, strong women who conquered things and were world changers, so I've really recommended this book. If you're into biblical fiction, I would recommend this book. So it uses the biblical principles and then Francine, she fills in the gaps with using her imagination to build stories. So I recommend that. Then this book, How to Start a Side Hustle by Nick Haralambous. This was also a book club with the Weekend Book Club book that we read. What I love about this book is that it is simple to read. Like, I read this twice. The first time to read for the book, and the second time because I was conducting the session where we were discussing the book with Nick himself. What I like about this book, it's easy to understand. It also just starts off with not everything but the actual side hustle. He talks about your mindset. That before you start the side hustle, because there's this thing where we believe that when you start your side hustle, you must start your side hustle and you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow, and he debunks all those myths. So he talks about the mindset, and he talks about your lifestyle, making sure that every part of your lifestyle is good. And he talks about finding ideas, and then hustling and making it happen. And he also talks about how to practically get your design for your logo, how to register a business, how to start a website and the different marketplaces that you can use. So I would recommend this book if you're looking at starting a side hustle and you want to see how you can do that, or you're already in it and you want to see how you can continue to do that. Recommend that book. Then this book, Tuesdays with Maury, by Mitch Albom. Wow, this book, guys, amazing. So this book is about a relationship between a student and his university lecturer, and how the student literally had gone out of the world, become famous, and etc., and his marriage is on the rocks and everything. And then he just hears on the news that his professor is now not feeling well, and then he decides to go visit him. His ex-professor remembers him, and then he says, let's meet every Tuesday. And literally, wow. So he would meet up with his professor every Tuesday, and his professor's health would be deteriorating over the time, but Mitch basically would always visit, and he has this life-altering experience as he goes to see his professor who talks about life and what life is and what life isn't. Because when you are near death's door, you have clarity of life and what life is and what life isn't. So I really recommend this book to anybody who is really searching for purpose, searching to figure out what this thing is all about. This thing called life is about. It's amazing. There are a few things that are spoken about that we still struggle with in this day and age, where we get so absorbed with what's happening around in media, news, etc., and we tend to lose sight on what really matters. So if you are looking to find sights in what really matters, I really would really recommend this book. And then finally, I would recommend this book by I Have a Story to Tell by me. So this book, wow, this was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So the idea for this book came, so the book is called I Have a Story to Tell, an anthology connecting the dots in life through owning and telling your stories. So I'll read the back. It says, everyone has a story to tell. We do not tell our stories because we are either ashamed of them or we think they are not dramatic enough for anyone to care to listen. Each and every story matters. Your story is part of who you are. Owning and telling your story is not easy feat, but it frees you to be fully present and focus on the future as you heal from the past. This book explores the stories of 17 individuals from all walks of life that were brave enough to own their stories and to tell us how they've overcome grief, rejection, abandonment, failure, and detours. Tell your story, even if it is to yourself. This book was the most emotional thing I've ever done. So the idea came one day, and I was just taking a walk, and I decided, look, it would be great to write a book about myself and how I've overcome life's thing. And I just thought, actually, you know what was it? Like, who wants to read a whole book about you? Let's just try it out and put out a call and ask if anybody would like to write, for me to write their story in this book, the anthology. And man, guys, the overwhelming response I got was overwhelming. Like, I literally had to shut off the applications. And then I just started doing Zoom call interviews with everybody, transcribed their stories, wrote their stories, sent them back to them. Some people pulled out, which I understand, because it's not easy writing your story, telling your story to the world. It's not easy putting yourself out there. And so, yeah, this was an interesting book for me to write. I've had calls to write a part 2, but I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to do that. But this was an exciting project. I would recommend you to get this book. It's available on Amazon and on thegifted.co.za. So yeah, my friends, that brings me to the end of this session, which is basically books that changed my life. I would really encourage you to get into the habit of reading. Even if the book, there are many other books that I've read, and some I've only gone past the first paragraph, some I've read a few chapters, but I've learned something. Read books, read, fill your mind, observe life, apply the lessons that you've learned from the books, and yeah, always pursue being better and learning and growing. So yeah, that's it from me. Keep safe and keep well. See you soon. Bye-bye.